Hi, I'm Jenna Riemersma, Clinical Director of the Atlanta Center for Relational Healing. And let me ask you a question. Do you have multiple personalities? I do. I don't mean, do you have multiple personality disorder? I hope I don't have that, although I might. But I want to know, are there different parts of you? And are those parts at war? If you're like me, and many people that I know, the answer to that is yes. And the parts of you that are at war are actually the reason for pretty much all of any suffering that you might be experiencing. For example, I love Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies. There's a part of me that is a big cookie eater. So when those Girl Scouts come out at Girl Scout cookie time and set up their folding tables in front of the grocery store, the cookie eating part of me comes up front, and it just kind of has one vocabulary word: cookie. I have another part of me, though, that's at war with the cookie eater. That part of me is very interested in fitness, yoga, meditation, healthy living, and would like to put only pureed cabbage juice into my body. It's not very happy with the cookie eater, and it tries to lock the cookie eater in the basement. But when the cookie eater sees the Girl Scouts, it gets really activated, bursts out of the basement, throws the healthy part out of the way, eats the entire box of Thin Mints, and then another part of me shows up. Maybe you have this part too. It's my internal critic, and it's mean, and it yells at me, and it says things like, "You fat slob, what is wrong with you eating a whole box of Thin Mints in one sitting? Where's your pureed beet juice?" And on it goes. Maybe you can relate. Parts of us are at war. And that, friends, in a nutshell, captures all of human suffering. If we get this simple concept, the concept that is captured in the transformational model of internal family systems therapy, everything changes. The way we live, the way we deal with our struggles, and how we heal. It all shifts. Let me tell you what I mean. About 40 years ago, Dr. Richard Schwartz began really listening to his clients. And when he did, he heard the same thing that I just described to you. They all described parts of them that were at war. They would have, let's say, a binging part that would binge and purge on food, and a part that was really angry at the binging part, and then a really scared, vulnerable part behind that. And what happened was, Dick developed a model that we now know as internal family systems. In other words, there's an internal family inside each one of us. And there are 4 key components to the IFS model. Number 1 are our exiles. Exiles are the parts of us that hold our pain. They feel all of our negative feelings like shame, sadness, despair, aloneness, rejection, not good enough. They hold our trauma messages, if you will. And we don't deal with that pain very well. When it gets triggered, it's really, really hard. So we develop 2 other parts. We call these parts together protectors, because they protect from pain, or at least they try to in the best way they know how. One set of those protectors are managers. Those are the proactive guys. They try to keep the pain from ever getting activated. Those would be the parts of us that do things like people-pleasing, controlling, perfectionism, over-volunteering, compulsive busyness. Those parts tend to be really socially acceptable and very applauded by the world. However, they're burdened parts. They're trying to keep us away from the pain of not feeling good enough or of feeling rejected that our exiles carry. Invariably, they're not going to be able to do that perfectly. A perfectionist part might do it right and perfectly most of the time, but at some point or another, that's going to stop working. And when it does, the second type of protector jumps in. Those guys are the firefighters, and they're the reactive bunch. Not so much ones that everyone loves. These are the ones like suicidal ideation, self-harm, eating disorders, sex addiction, alcoholism, drug use, dissociation, all of those types of things, very much less well received in our culture at large. Most people hate these guys, and most people who have those firefighters have managers that hate the firefighters too. Parts at war. And so begins this eternal looping of suffering and symptoms that often we can't seem to resolve. Here's the problem. A lot of times when we are in a helping profession, our managers that want to fix the other person's suffering align with the other person's managers that don't like, let's say, the sexual acting out firefighter and move against it. They're really not often interested in trying to understand what that sexual acting out is trying to help with in the client's system. Fair enough. IFS suggests that we do the reverse, that instead of aligning managers against firefighters and really just continuing to polarize someone's internal system, we actually show respect and appreciation for all of the parts and what they're trying to accomplish. That doesn't mean that anything goes, but it does mean that all parts are welcome. Take that in for just a minute. All parts of you are welcome. Think with me about that thing that you do, that feeling that you have, those thoughts that you think, that you have the most shame about. Those. Now, what would it be like if it were really true that that part, that feeling, those thoughts were welcome? Authentically. Not when they shaped up and got their act together, but exactly how they are. Because they are either carrying the burdens of trauma and pain, or they're trying to help in some way. The problem with our managers and firefighters is that they learned how to do the job that they're doing, usually when we were very young. And they have these things like horse blinders on a racehorse. They lock in on that behavior, on that way of coping, and they really can't see any other options. And they really don't have any way of knowing that we've actually grown up. We may not be in that original environment where we needed that coping strategy to help us survive. So they keep doing it over and over and over again. Meanwhile, the pain keeps getting worse and worse, and our managers are horrified and angry at these firefighters, but we can't seem to stop. Well, of course not. It makes total sense until we go to those parts that are engaged in the harmful practices and say, welcome. What is it that you're afraid would happen if you didn't jump in and act out sexually like that? Oh, you're afraid that this person would get flooded with pain, is that right? That makes sense. How did you learn how to cope in this way? Oh, back when you were 7 and you discovered Dad's stash of pornography. Yeah, that makes sense. How do you feel about the job that you're doing? You're exhausted? You wish you could stop? But you think there's not another way? Sure, that makes total sense. When we begin to engage like that with our parts, what we find is they relax. And suddenly they feel seen and appreciated, just like a real person. We're not saying the behavior that they're engaged in is good. It's not. It isn't helping, but they don't know any better. It's our job to gently and compassionately show them. And so what we do is we invite these parts gently and tenderly to just unblend, to step out of the way. And when we do, what we discover is behind all of these parts in every single individual lies the exact same thing. And that, in IFS language, is called the self. Many faith traditions have language for this essential core self. In a Christian tradition, we would call it the imago Dei, or the God image within every human being. Being made in the image of God. In other traditions, it is called Atman or flow. But every spiritual tradition recognizes that this is something inherently present in every human being, regardless of the type of trauma that they have experienced. And the incredible thing about it is that it is this God image or essential self that actually holds healing power, not something outside the client. It's an inside job. So it's not the alcohol, it's not the drugs, it's not the sex, it's not the dissociation, it's not the therapist that's going to bring that deep healing. It's the self. And until we have access to the self by inviting with care and compassion and curiosity all parts to step back and be heard and witnessed, then this spontaneous experience emerges of the self. And the qualities of the self are exactly the same in every human being. They are the 8 C's. They're qualities like courage, connectedness, curiosity, compassion, clear-mindedness, creativity. Beautiful, beautiful qualities that are the essence of our best self. They are, in fact, the ultimate attachment figure. And the work that we do in IFS therapy is absolutely beautiful because we are not inviting clients to attach to us or an imaginal figure that we're resourcing. We are actually inviting them to attach to self. Those other things are wonderful as well and have very healing components. And when we get down to it, locating the source of healing within the individual is incredibly powerful and beautiful. And it takes the therapist and all of our knowing parts out of the picture. Our job is simply to be present with the client in self, with curiosity, compassion, and empathy. This is a deeply non-pathologizing, gracious model that allows absolutely any symptom to hold meaning and purpose, to make sense. It all makes sense when we understand the backstory. IFS gives us a chance to do that. I love it. This changes everything. I hope you'll love it too. If this way of seeing the world and understanding human functioning excites you the way it excites me, I invite you to reach out, get to know a little bit more about the model, come and experience my practice and our website. We have the Atlanta Center for Relational Healing. If you'd like to know more, please visit us at acfrh.com, or if you want to type it all out, atlantacenterforrelationalhealing.com. You can also find more information about the internal family systems model at selfleadership.org. Once again, that is selfleadership.org. I hope that you will join me on this incredible journey of transformation. I'll see you there.